Hello and welcome to the Quiet Part podcast hosted by Mark Hansen, where he explores the unspoken stories hidden in the quiet hours we spend at home. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hey there, Mark. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm doing good. It's losing season for me again.
What?
And yeah, I keep pretending every year. Every year I convince myself that I'm like really good at fantasy football. And I'm very analytical, and then I think I secretly suck at fantasy football. I think I secretly suck at it.
Is that all math or no? Is that luck?
I guess it is more luck than I think it is. But I keep thinking if I do enough math,
right,
then I can erase the luck.
Yeah, I can see that about you. I can see that's what you think.
Yeah.
I've never gotten into the fantasy football thing. I do love football. Do you have a favorite team, or do you just follow for fantasy purposes?
No, okay. I'm I would say born and raised, but I was not born this way, nor was I raised this way. I am a Packers fan. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. Nobody in my family knows why, right? So this is the logical conversation that I have with people all the time. They're like, "Oh, what's your favorite team?" And I say, "Green Bay Packers." And they're like, "Oh, are you from Wisconsin?" It's like, "No, I'm actually from Houston." Like literally the inverse of Wisconsin. I'm on the other end of the country. And they're like, "Oh, do you have family from Wisconsin?" It's like, "No, my entire family is from Houston and the Houston area or the South Texas border." And they're like, "Okay, so when did you start following the Packers?" And I'm like, "Nobody knows. Nobody knows." But by the time, by the time, the only thing I remember, right, is if anybody remembers the JCPenney catalog, when that used to come out, okay, we were moving into a new house, and I was old enough that my parents said I could decorate my own room. And I found in the JCPenney catalog the like Green Bay Packers room set, like duvet, pillow covers. There was a curtain, everything. My room was every shade of the Green Bay Packers colorway. And that was, I was 5 or 6. My brother had just been born, and I've never wavered from being a Packers fan, which doesn't mean I hate other teams. My wife is a Cowboys fan, and it's not that I don't like her team. I just like my team more. So
I'm sorry. I'm an NFC East fan, so the Cowboys are our rivals. I'm an Eagles fan, so
okay. The Eagles, like, look, that's the problem. Can you call the Eagles, please? Because they are on my fantasy team, and they are letting me down.
They're letting everybody down, Mark. I got to tell you.
Yeah, what I really like at the end of the day, I like good football games. I don't want 6 to 9 national championship, Super Bowl game. I don't want that.
Yeah.
What I want is a good game, and I really don't care who's playing. But if my team's winning, that's great. But sometimes they don't win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's entertainment, right?
Yes. All right, I'm just going to start trying to call my fantasy football entertainment. I'll start caring about it less.
What are we going to talk about today, Mark?
What we're talking about today is what does it look like to make the decision and to then actually partner with Second Comma? What does that look like? What's happening? It's kind of like in the Wizard of Oz. There's the curtain. What's happening behind the curtain towards the end of the movie? Today is like pull back the curtain. What's happening? I'm hoping to educate people just to let them know the intention that's in the process, all the steps that are happening in the process, why those things are happening. I'm hoping to shed some light so that people can say, I like that. I don't like that. This sounds good. This doesn't sound good. This sounds like it would benefit my family. This doesn't sound like it would benefit my family. That's what today's discussion about.
Okay, so I shoot off an email. Hey, Mark, I'm really interested in getting some financial services from you. What do you need from me?
From you, so I try to make everything as easy as possible. So that process is starting as virtually as you want it to be. So the most virtual version of my process, which is for the busy parent that finds it very difficult to drive across town to sit in a 1.5-hour meeting at somebody's office after fighting traffic and then to go back to their job and try to get their job done by 5 so they can go home to their family. Right. We scrap all of that. We go virtual. So I use Calendly to schedule all of my meetings. So you go online, you see the live look at my calendar, you find a time that works for you, and you schedule what I call an introductory meeting, which is really just a 15-minute conversation. Wendy, do you like me? Me, do I like Wendy? Do I feel like Wendy wants what I offer? does Wendy sound like she's a good candidate for the services and the skills that I have? And that's why schedule an hour when we really should just talk for a few minutes and make sure you even want to talk to me for an hour, right?
Okay. Yeah. So what kind of things do we find out in the first 15 minutes or so to make that decision?
Yeah, so it's kind of like going to the doctor's office, right? You go to the doctor's office and you're sitting on the table, doctor walks in, why are you here? That's a little bit of what that meeting's like. It just, hey, um, every other day of the year, you haven't asked to talk to me. Today, you decided you wanted to talk to a financial planner. What brings us together today? Right. And so then maybe you would tell me what brings us together. And then I like to ask people, and how do you think I can help with that? Because if somebody thinks that I'm in complete control of the stock market and investment returns and all of those things, that's a totally separate conversation. And I don't want to skip it. But asking people, how do you think I can help with that? And then maybe contrasting that if needed with here's what I do. And then I tell people what I actually do and who I do it for. And at the end of that, I'm just saying, Wendy, do you want that? Do you want what I just told you I do? And that's a 15-minute conversation. And then we decide, should we have the longer 1 hour sit down discovery meeting, which would be the next part of the process if you decided, hey, I do want to move forward. I do want to keep talking.
Okay. Well, so Mark, I like you. Let's talk some more. As long as you're not like the doctor and say you need to lose weight, I'm on board.
It's not part of my plan, not part of my plan. So don't worry. Don't
Whew.
worry. So the discovery meeting is the exact same thing. We go back to the online platform. We schedule a meeting at your convenience when you'd like to come. This meeting, it's not necessary for spouses to be involved, but that does come in later down the road. I do want spouses coming into the meetings before we get into kind of a formal partnership. So discovery meeting, we're sitting down. It's a 1 hour discussion. First thing is always what has changed since our last discussion. And that can be a thing in your finances that has changed. That can be a question that popped up that you didn't think about in our first 15 minutes. That could be a new understanding of something that you have fundamentally. I want to make sure that I'm talking to the updated mental version that I have of Wendy when we get to that meeting. So, again, what brings us together today? We go a little bit deeper on the introductory meeting topics, and we talk more about what does it look like for me to help you with what you're doing. And one of the questions that I ask that I think people could talk to themselves about before you even start talking to a financial planner is, okay, 3 years from now, you're looking back on our partnership together, and it has been successful. And I would say, Wendy, what has happened so that 3 years from now, when you look back, this has been successful? What has actually taken place? And then I give people as much space as they need to answer that, whether that's I've started a business. I've left my employment. I've gotten back into the workforce. I feel like I understand where my household cash flow is going. I've got better control of my variable expenses, I'm just more aware of the decisions that I'm making when it comes to finances. I let people tell me, what does success look like? And then again, I'm contrasting that with what I do if needed, or saying, here's the synergy between what you think is success and what I do. And we talk about that for the rest of our meeting.
Do I need to bring a lot of stuff? I think.
No, you bring nothing. And
Oh,
that's, again,
you don't need to look at my statements and all 401k info and other investments and anything like that.
no. And that's probably different than some other financial advisors. Most people want to see all the numbers. And for me, it's not my question for Wendy, the secret question is not, Wendy, do you have enough money for me to want to work with you? That's not my question. And that's why I don't need to see your asset statements or anything like that. My question is, Wendy, do you have a problem that I can help you solve? Can we work together? Do we want to work together? And I don't need to see your asset statements to understand that. And sometimes that does catch people off guard. Now, your favorite part, Wendy, this is when I start assigning the homework.
Oh,
Okay, so if you
always.
get to the discovery meeting and I say, do you want to continue on in this process? And you say yes, this is where we start creating an asset map. Okay, and an asset map is something where I think we talked about it last episode. It's kind of a top down, pretend like it came out of your printer, a 30,000-foot view of your finances. What money is coming in? Where are you holding it? What kind of accounts do we have? What assets do you have? What kind of protection do you have for your family, like a revocable living trust or term life insurance or short-term, long-term disability insurance? All of those things are on one piece of paper. And where that's super helpful is because now we have something, it's kind of like particularly at a process map, and you were trying to figure out what part of the process was broken, and now we can point to it. Now you have a physical thing that you can print out in front of you, sit down with your spouse, and say, no, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this asset that we have. Or Mark is giving us advice on these accounts, and you can like circle them and cross out the other ones. It helps really stabilize the conversations you're having, and it makes it easier to have financially based conversations when you are not a financial professional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because then you don't feel all this pressure to do everything right and, I don't know, get in trouble maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the lead up, right, these first sets of meetings, there is no trouble. It's just because sometimes people come and like, I know you're not going to like my answers to this, or I know I need to make changes, and it's more, the kind of the punchline at the end of this process of do you want to work together is, are you ready to make changes? Not you're doing great, you're doing horrible, I like you, I don't like you. It's you recognize that what you're doing won't get you where you want to go. Wendy, are you ready to try something different? And if you say no, that's fine. Because what I don't want to do is force my process onto you. What I'm waiting for is for you to be ready to take the steps. And then I will absolutely guide somebody through my financial planning process. So you get your homework done, and then you schedule the next meeting. And this is where the spouse has to come on board, because this is the last meeting before I say, do you actually want to start working together? So this is our discovery follow-up meeting. Again, it kicks off with, are there any changes? What's been on your mind? Typically, by this point, one spouse has tried to completely educate the other spouse about what we've been talking about. And, maybe the listeners, I don't know if it's in their marriage, but sometimes there's a communication gap between one spouse or another, or information is taken in and then relayed a different way. And so while this conversation can sound very repetitive sometimes, it's very important that both spouses hear the same information and be on the same page. Because at the end of this meeting, I'm going to say, all right, we're done. We're done talking. This is everything that you need to know to make an informed decision about a couple of things. One, do you want to change what you're doing? Are you ready to take action on your finances? And then two, do you want to take that action with me? And I just put those in front of people. I say, don't make your decision right now. At least wait till tomorrow. Sleep on it. Let's make an informed decision. And I give people that space because at the end of the day, I more so want people to take action on their finances when they're ready to, versus forcing them to take it with me. But I don't want one spouse ready to go and the other spouse doesn't even understand why they're talking to this guy named Mark about these things called financial planning processes, right? And so in that meeting, we review the asset map, and I will point to the asset map. I'll circle things, and I will say, this right here, this is a gap. This area on the asset map is supposed to have your life insurance on it, and it doesn't, right? Or we'll talk about how you're utilizing certain accounts, but the strategy that I would recommend is using A, B, and C type of accounts instead, and how those work in harmony. And I give people all of the answers and then say, do you want me to help you do this? And then people come back and they say yes, or they say no. And that kind of concludes the do you want to be Mark's client process.
All right. Mark, yes, I would like to move forward. Let's do this.
Perfect. And what we are skipping, there's a lot of paperwork in all of this. All of that is digitized. I definitely don't mean to pretend like there's no paperwork and this is just some kind of verbal, yes, I want to work with you. No, on the back end, again, if we pull back the curtain, on the back end, I'm clicking lots of buttons. I'm filling out lots of paperwork. Everything is digitized. It's e-signatures. This process is meant to meet you where you are physically, and you don't have to travel around and go get everything notarized or something like that. But okay, you come back, you say, yes, I'm ready to go. Then again, online scheduling platform, and we have what we call our getting organized meeting. Okay, and this getting organized meeting is one final discussion in greater detail about everything that we're about to do. Because what we're about to do is step through estate planning, risk management, household cash flow, retirement, and investing. And what's important for people to realize is that we are looking at your family, and we're putting together an estate plan. And inside of that estate plan, there's going to be some life insurance, probably. That's in the category of risk management. And then we start talking about retirement and investments and household cash flow. We talk about the cash flow because that's what we free up. We use the excess cash flow to fund the investments. and we use the investments to fund retirement. Now, that right there, that process, getting from here to retirement, that's a 20, 30, if we start early enough, even a 40-year journey that we're getting on together. We need a plan for what happens if Wendy can't complete that journey, right? Wendy's got a family, Wendy has children. Those children need Wendy to continue facilitating this plan, right? If Wendy's the working spouse, if that makes sense. So, what happens if Wendy can't complete this 20, 30, 40-year timeline? Well, that is where the estate plan and the risk management come in. Okay, so let's say Wendy's the working spouse in this scenario. Wendy's greatest asset is her ability to continue going to work and earning the money that is the excess cash flow that goes into the investments that funds retirement. Okay, so we have some life insurance. Typically, it's term life insurance, depending on the scenario, but typically term life insurance. And that would be if Wendy loses her ability to continue earning the income, then we need to accelerate all of that money to right now. And that's how we protect the surviving spouse should something happen to Wendy. And then should something happen to both spouses, we protect the family under the estate plan. That's the revocable living trust. And we're talking about all of that in this getting organized meeting. And I'm asking my clients at this point, because now you are a client, and I'm saying, what is on your mind? What do you not understand? What words am I using that you don't understand? What strategy am I talking about that doesn't make sense to you? And it's a lot of, let me stop right here and ask you if you have any questions. So, Wendy, let me stop right here. What questions do you have about everything that I just laid out?
Yeah, you laid out a lot. I'm assuming that there was homework at some point that I had to bring in all these forms now. Now we're talking about the homework again, right?
After this, there's definitely some homework, right? So we have our getting organized meeting. Yes, Wendy, I'm famous for the homework, I think,
Yes.
at
I
this
mean,
point.
this is why I want to hire you, Mark, so I don't have homework.
So we have the getting organized meeting. Let's say we come out of the getting organized meeting, and the goal of that meeting is for the client to understand why we're about to do what we're about to do. I used to not have this meeting. I used to just jump into the financial planning process because I thought that's what people wanted to do. But then I'd say, okay, Wendy, great, let's do estate planning. And then it'd be crickets. And we'd sit and we'd wait and we'd sit and we'd wait. And after enough time, it was like, hey, Wendy, you're the client now, paying fees. It's no longer free, and we're sitting still. What's going on? And I would get, hey, what's a revocable living trust again? Why are we doing this? This is a lot of homework. Why are we doing it? And I realized I was giving people assignments, but not aligning their mentality, their understanding with why we were doing it. So everything I just laid out of freeing up household cash flow to fund the investments to get to retirement, that's a long timeline. This is our plan in case we can't complete the long timeline because we still have a family that we want to care for. I used to not explain it that way. And what that left was clients who were ready to take action, but unsure of why they were doing the action. So the getting organized meeting hopefully helps everybody understand why we're doing what we're doing. And then from that meeting, I kick off the estate planning process, the risk management process, and the cash flow analysis, diagnosis process, whatever you want to call that. And those are what we start moving through. And I've got everything on my end, again, systematically tied together. I've got an operating system where I'm moving through and making sure that it's the same process repeated for clients over and over again. It's customized to the family, as in if you are still growing your family versus your children are out of the house, that's going to be a slightly different process. But overall, we're in the same ballpark. To blend all my metaphors together there.
Does everybody need estate planning?
And that's what we talk about in there. People typically need some version of estate planning. Not everybody needs full, heavy estate planning. If your children are of age, then you might not have a need to do a full-on revocable living trust. But do you have a durable power of attorney? Do you have a last will and testament? Like, are things in order so that if you can't make decisions for yourself, somebody has been named to step in? There's a couple different options here. They are flexible. But again, this is repeating back to that's a long pause right there. Discovery follow-up meeting. I want people making educated decisions. If you choose the full-on estate planning, I want you to choose it because you know or you believe that's the best option for you and your family. If you choose the light version of estate planning, I want you to choose that because you believe that is the best option for your family. And it's the same thing we get to risk management. There's a lot of back and forth about, is it 10 years, is it 20 years, is it 30 year, are we doing 2 million, 5 million, 12 million? We're going to talk about what are the consequences, good and bad, of each of the decisions that we're trying to make. And we will talk about that in our structured meetings back and forth until my client feels that both spouses, if it's a spouse situation, both spouses feel like they are making, or they are confident that they're making a well-informed decision. Okay. Every decision is not perfect. There's no perfect way through this process. But what we're trying to do is put enough guardrails up that we feel confident that our situation is improving because we're making well-informed decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that's really where we're talking about, like, how comfortable we are with risk.
Yes, and so risk is all through here. It's the risk of not having an estate plan versus having one. The risk of not having appropriate life insurance or having appropriate life insurance. And then the risk of, I think we talked about in episode 8, I believe, around the risk of delaying saving for retirement, which starts, just like we talked about in that episode, starts at understanding your household cash flow and redirecting it into the correct investment accounts. If you keep delaying that, that is a type of risk that you are taking on because you're taking today's decision and you're kicking it off till tomorrow, which inherently has risk because that decision is moving further into the future.
We also have like the risk that we want to take when it comes to investing and such. And, there's these old standby rules, and I don't know if people still follow them or if there's a different formula they use now. But basically, I was always taught, whatever your age is, put your age in bonds and put the rest in stocks. And I don't know how it works, Mark.
If you go on social media, you'll hear all kinds of rules of thumb, but like the rule of thumb is about like a thumb. And the question is like, Wendy, what if you're not a thumb? Or like, what if your thumb is different? And then this rule of thumb is like broken. I know that rules of thumb have some flexibility, but okay, let me ask you, let me say it back to you and ask a couple clarifying questions. Take your age and put that into bonds.
Right.
Have you adequately saved for, not you, but like in this
Right.
hypothetical situation, have you adequately saved for retirement? Have you overfunded your retirement? Have you even started saving for retirement?
Overfunded? Who overfunded? No, I'm putting money in the retirement, but no, I wouldn't say overfunded. But yeah, there's money going in.
Right. So then that's if someone doesn't know exactly how much money is in every type of account, then they can't understand the tax consequences of that savings plan that you have. And on the other end, if they don't understand what you want retirement to be, what you want to do, when you want to do it, who you want to do it with, and where you want to do it, if they don't understand those things, I don't think that there is a rule of thumb to stick in there in the middle because you don't have near enough information.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, especially when you brought up all that other stuff. I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with that other stuff. That's what you're for.
Yeah, exactly. And that is exactly why I don't believe in people taking rules of thumb from social media. Social media is great because we can keep up with our grandparents and our parents and our friends and our kids. Social media is great for that. Social media also allows people to share ideas that maybe shouldn't be shared, like financial rules of thumb. Like if you're not going to explain all of the missing information that is necessary for the rule of thumb to even be applied, then it's not helpful to hear the rule of thumb. But there's a lot of training that goes in, certification that goes into becoming a financial planner and getting that credential and being able to call yourself. It's not that I'm high and mighty and I know all the answers and you don't know the answers. I learned the information just like anybody else can learn the information. But the delta is that the information is learned and is being implemented versus on social media. Sometimes it's just partial information being shared with partially educated people. That is not specifically a recipe for success that I want people following.
Okay. So what's the next part of the process? What's going on now?
Yeah, so we kick off, and I kind of make the joke like the first half of that meeting, the getting organized meeting, is talking about what happens if you die. It's not a fun part of the meeting, but that's estate planning and risk management. The rest of our meeting and the rest of our time together is figuring out what are you doing with your household cash flow, where are you spending money, where do you not want to spend your money, and that's going to be broken up into like we talk about in episode 4, fixed expenses, variable expenses. We got savings, we've got retirement. Those are the main categories that we're trying to break things into. And then we talk about retirement. What do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? When do you want to start doing it? Who do you want to do it with? And we start putting together some high level numbers. Now, I don't need to know what car you're going to be driving when you're 84. I don't need to know that. It's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to figure out in general, broad terms, where are we trying to spend in retirement? And then we just match that up with the investing. So we have a timeline from now till retirement. We need to invest unused cash flow up until retirement. And then if those things collide together, that is retirement, where we can now start living off of our investments instead of staying in the accumulation phase. That's how we step into retirement. And I like to say retirement is just math. Okay. We got a lot of inputs. All the software that I have, all the software that everybody has is just a giant calculator. It's kind of like Excel with a pretty face on it because for some reason, not everybody likes Excel, even though that's my love language. Oh, I see that face you're making, Wendy.
Yeah, because you're a numbers guy. You like math. Not everybody likes math.
I like math and I like structure. And so Excel is like speaking my love language.
I don't even know how to work that darn thing. I go to click something and the cursor's over. Oh, no.
Well, all just at the highest level, financial planning software is just a giant calculator. And if we get an answer that we don't like, we just change the inputs. The inputs are how much money are we saving? Where are we saving it to? How long can we save it? We change those inputs, we will get a different output. And that's the back and forth. So now we're into the traditional advisor-client relationship where we're taking snapshots about every 6 months. We're meeting a couple of times a year and we're saying, this was the plan. We've implemented it for 6 months. Let's take a snapshot. Have we made the progress we thought we would make? Do we need to make any changes? Update the plan as necessary. Go for another 6 months and meet it again. And then if something happens in between there, you want to buy a house, sell a house, buy a boat, sell a boat, fund college or whatever, then we can talk about those in between. But then I guess the road that we're traveling towards retirement is really just taking 2 big snapshots a year, and we're making sure that we're on the path we thought we would be on. And that's as simple and complicated as it is.
Right. Because things could be working out great. Things might not be working out great. There might be adjustments needed. There might not be adjustments needed. So yeah, we've got to keep all of that in mind.
Yes. It's you go in for your yearly checkup at the doctor. Everything might be great. You also might discover something, but you don't know unless you go to the doctor, unless you take that financial snapshot.
All right, Mark. So if people want to know more, if they want to get more information, how do they get in touch with you?
I've tried to take this process and detail it out on the website. So if you missed any details or you feel like something's a little fuzzy, I try to detail it out on my website. You can find that at second-comma.com. So if you go to the website, you can learn more about me, what I do, who I do it for. You can see my fee schedule. You can see my process. Ideally, you could read my entire website and say, Mark, sounds great. Let's talk. Or Mark, sounds great. Go do it with somebody else. I don't want to talk to you. I try to make the website very thorough so you can self-educate.
That would be rude.
I haven't gotten that phone call yet, but maybe it's on the table. I don't know.
I might just do it later for fun.
Somebody scheduled a meeting with me and put their name as Ron Swanson. And I just was dying laughing because I know who that is because we have a great inside joke. And Ron, if you're listening to this joke, or you're listening to this podcast, then I like the joke and I'm bringing it out to the public. But it is funny having that virtual gap. It does allow people's personalities to show up sometimes. Yeah. And it's a little bit less formal than just tell me when you want to come in and I'll write it down in my calendar. And I like that it gives a little space for people to have fun.
Yeah. Okay. So the website, once again,
second-comma.com. And then in the show notes, you're going to be able to contact me. There's an email address you can use to shoot me an email, comments, questions, whatever you got about the podcast, about finances. Again, we've been taking a lot of feedback from people who are using that email address, and that's where some of these episodes are coming from, just answering questions of the listeners. So if you have a question that you want answered, keep it coming.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you, Mark. And thank you for listening today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time.